welcome. I'm so glad you're here. If you're watching it live or you're watching it on the replay, welcome, welcome, welcome. We have got a really fantastic episode planned for you today. So, fun fact, if you have ADHD, did you know that you are far more likely to experience it's easy to make friends and incredibly impossible to retain them? This is actually a symptom of ADHD. I suspect it's actually a symptom of just being neurodivergent, though, truthfully. I just don't know enough about, say, for instance, bipolar disorder, which is under the neurodivergent umbrella. Ditto with epilepsy and so on, of like, I'm not as informed on some of these other neurodivergent diagnoses. But I wouldn't be surprised at all that other kinds of neurodivergence also experience some difficulty either in making friends or retaining friends or even just friending along the road. So we're going to talk about it today. This is something that Tom and I both felt growing up that people didn't talk about enough, and they certainly didn't talk about enough with children. And we just sort of blindly kind of tried to navigate this subject. And might I point out, not great. We did not do a great job as children, or frankly, as young adults, navigating this. So there's a couple things that we noticed we were inherently not good at. And then over the years, as we have retained friends, that we have found they too also struggled with some of these things. And so we came up with sort of, I don't want to call it like a scientific profile, but sort of a, like the you might be neurodivergent if kind of thing of that this is far more likely to happen to you if you are a neurodivergent person in the realm of friendship. We all need friends. Well, humans are inherently social creatures. As much as I don't quite understand why American masculinity lauds the lone wolf thing. Okay, but number one, wolves are not lone. Wolves are social creatures too, just not with humans. That's what dogs are for. And number two, humans are inherently social. Literally, humans will die from lack of human touch. We need to be around other people. We can substitute other animals for that to some degree, but it is not a perfect one-to-one substitution. And no, adding 12 more cats or dogs to your life is not going to equip. I know. I see Laura. And I see Maggie somewhere off in the middle distance who's like, no, I think adding enough cats and dogs and goats and bees will no, I'm so sorry. It doesn't quite. But again, how can we have an easier time establishing friendship, maintaining friendships, but more importantly, having the kind of friendships that we want to have and that are gratifying for us? Because just because if you put on a mask, if you put on a metaphorical mask, and that person likes that mask, that doesn't mean they actually like you, right? Deep down inside, you know that. And so how can we be our true selves around people and they still want to be our friends? We're going to talk about all these things because every last one of these subjects has come up in our lifetimes of me and Tom trying to go, what are we doing wrong? Because we are those engineers. We're going to tinker. We're going to try again. The cycle continues forever. We're going to share with you what we've learned. We hope that if you're in the chat, that you'll share with us what you've learned, and that if you're watching in the replay, we hope that you'll put in the comments. You'll share with us what you learned there too, so that we all can benefit as a community and improve our friendships, have the friendships we've always wanted. I always wanted friendships where people just accepted me for who I am. and understood that I could be a bit much. I am not low maintenance. I will never be low maintenance. And some of my high maintenance is if I make baked goods, I want someone to eat them. You don't have to eat it, but you have to help me find someone to eat it and appreciate it. You're not my friend if you won't at least help me find someone who will eat the things I've made. So, again, that is one of the things I found. No, it turns out I really need this. Why do I need it? I don't know, because this is how I'm wired, yeah. But yes, thankfully, the people who have been my friends for 20, 30, even all 40 years now have all come to accept that this is part of, the friendship contract with me is if I make some delicious goods, you're going to have to help me find people to eat it. It's fine if you're going, gluten-free or you don't eat sugar or whatever. That's okay. But people, and you need to help me find people who will eat it and delight in it, okay? And that this is part of being friends with me. Everybody's got a couple things like this that are like they're quirks. They're odd. They're not the normal. You have to like ride or die or whatever. Everybody's got something. And one of the things we as neurodivergent people need to do is figure out what those are about ourselves so that we can be upfront with people, because surprises suck. So without further ado, we have these lovely people as well as in the chat to help us. Hello, Tom. Hello, Laura.
Hello.
Two of my very delightful friends. Tom has been my friend most of his life. And Laura, I have only met since the pandemic, and she has also been a delightful friend. And we have shipped each other boxes of goodies. And we have a plan to meet in person next month.
I have the time scheduled off work, and I have found somebody to board Roy, and I paid them already. So This is happening.
It's happening. I'm going to drive, about 2,000 miles. Laura's going to cross international boundaries to do this. Like, yes, dogs will be boarded. Cats will be taken care of by friends. It's going to be great. Very exciting. Yes, Megan. We'll get to see you next year. I feel very confident about this.
I put in the request to get StokerCon next year off of work, which is in San Diego. So I scheduled off more time than necessary. So maybe we can meet up at Disney.
Ooh. Well, we are going to try to meet again in Chicago sometime in 2024, but maybe not in the height of summer. Chicago's not a bad place to be in the height of summer because it's off of Lake Michigan, so it tends to have a breeze. But nevertheless, like September and autumn and spring in Chicago are lovely. I can honestly say I've been there many times during spring and autumn, and it is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So. Also, let's be honest, I like it a little cooler. I just like it chilly. Oh, I want to go meet you in Canada, Laura. I want to. Of course, I do want to go to Montreal and eat my way through Quebec as I can.
Get all the bagels.
All the bagels, all the brisket, all the smoked meats, everything Montreal is known for. I'm told it's very cold there all the time other than summer, and summer is literally 5 to 6 weeks long. That's what I'm told. And that is from Canadian shows, by the way. Okay. That is not me being a rude American.
Well, that is how long is the sunbathing season?
And the growing season.
In Montreal, yeah.
But yeah, apparently the sunbathing season is exactly 5 to 6 weeks long. As is the growing season. And I'm like, wow, that is a short growing season. I live in South Mississippi, where our growing season is all year. I have grown basil outside in the ground and had it still putting out new leaves in December. I made pesto at Christmas.
Nice.
Yeah. So, Tom, where shall we start?
Oh,
Since remember, this whole season is the things Tom wishes that younger Tom had known. So these are all the letters that he would write, would want to write to his younger self.
the things that took me forever to understand, because it's one of those things, you do not know what you do not know.
Right.
And when you're neurodivergent, you are not told what everyone else already knows. They just assume you know it too.
Which you don't.
Is you need a lot of, if you're neurodivergent, often it means you are going to have a more difficult time reading body language. You're not going to get as much communication from body language and micro expressions that a neurotypical person will get. So instead, you have to kind of learn how to put it into your verbal communication and work out strategies so they also respond back with the same kind of messages and information. And that's okay. There is this, when you're a kid, there's this need for conformity and to fit in. Versus as you get older, no, it's just be you. That's who people are really interested in. And if they are not interested in who you are and how you always are, then that's just not a good fit for either of you. Just, not something to do to yourself or others.
Mhm.
Like that's what people talk about why they stop masking, of it's so exhausting to pretend to be someone else that eventually it just becomes too much. And you never really get the energy back again to put that much effort into it, because you've got other things to spend that energy on, of being happy, enjoying things.
Mm-hmm.
So it is simultaneously being yourself, but also always be on the lookout for strategies to help you communicate better with others. So like one of the things I had a real difficult time understanding was like, one of the big uses for friends is to help figure out if your thinking is reasonable, or if it's just you're being highly emotional, and that no, this is not how the world really works, that you're thinking in your head at the minute. So
because, fun fact, ADHD, emotional dysregulation, is one of the symptoms. And what that means is you either feel like, if you're sad, you feel super sad. Or if you feel sad, you barely feel anything. But you're not feeling it at the level neurotypicals are feeling. You're either feeling it on one end or the other of the spectrum, but not, in a nice, maintainable place in the middle. And also, it can swing even within what you're feeling. So, emotional dysregulation is a symptom of ADHD. It's also a symptom of several other neurodivergent diagnoses, but it's just something to be aware of. And if you do have ADHD, you've probably noticed this, of the melodrama within you. No, this is over. My life is over. It's like, we're just at a cheesecake. Calm down. No, you don't understand.
The amount of times I have accidentally cried in front of my boss. It's like,
Oh.
It hurts.
Yeah. Yes. Oh God, I feel so seen and also exposed. Oh God, me too.
But so like one of the things I worked out in my 20s that did help my friendships a bunch was just having that friendship where I can go and ask them at the beginning of, a rant for them, or I would tell them if it was my case, that this is do you want to be heard, or are you looking for solutions to a problem? Because I can't always tell with the way people say things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Is this a vent session or a problem solving session?
And as much as like they like to, Hollywood likes to pretend that, oh, autistic people just don't like emotion, and they're all, and it's like, no, we do. It's just it's harder to read it sometimes. And so that uncertainty is what actually gets to us, not people having strong emotions. We have strong emotions all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, is this venting? In which case, all right, I'm here to vent with you. Or is this, I need answers and solutions so I do not end up here again? Because I tell you one more time, and I'm spiking their drink with Drano. I need a better solution.
But not really, right? This is a line from a movie that Tom and I watched way too much as children.
Yes.
Adventures in Babysitting, the original.
and again, and of the, it's okay though to bring this up. Like that is part of friendship, is to admit to your friends what are your strengths and your weaknesses, what you're just not that good at. It's, it's not a sign of your friendship with others. It's just part of who you are.
And when necessary, compliment bondage.
Oh, yeah.
Truly a fun sport we should all take up.
Not the compliment bondage.
Yes.
But on the other hand, those are all things you see successful neurotypical people do, including the compliments. Is, they're there to celebrate with each other. They are there to, commiserate with each other. And, if it's just their event, then yeah, there's no judgment for that. Including okay, so how many quarts of ice cream did you eat that night? Not for judgment, just for notes for later on. And that's the fun that people, neurodivergents, find out later in life of not masking. That you can just be yourself and not worry, oh, if I'm myself, I'm going to lose these friends.
Mm-hmm.
Just for being myself.
And, I've had adults say to me, but if you're your true self and they don't like you, then were they really ever your real friends? And being like, you just don't understand. Like, because as a child, I just felt this need to have friends, even if, I just didn't quite understand. They weren't real friends. Real friends like you for exactly who you are, warts and all, weirdness and quirks, whatever it is, they if anything, they celebrate it. That is what I have learned as an adult. It's true friends, if anything, celebrate what other people have disdained in you. Whatever it is.
I had a friend in elementary school, and then high school again. I was homeschooled for 7th and 8th grade. But we were both very nerdy, and it was so fun. So in elementary school, we would hang out in the shed for where they keep all the equipment and read Harry Potter together.
Nice.
And then in high school, we had these DBQs, these I can't remember what the D stands for, but it's like database questions or whatever. It was in high school, and it was for our European history class. And so you'd have to read the text and do this write-up every week. And you were supposed to, or was it every day? I don't remember. But you were supposed to go up and write yours on the board twice during the school year. Nobody was doing them except for me and my friends. So we made a game of who could get the most of their work on the board. And so we did it 12 or 13 times each throughout the year. It's we're doing our homework. Yeah, we're awesome. Let's just go for broke. So that was fun. Yeah. And then I was in marching band and she was in pageantry. So we got to go on the same trips.
Eva also kind of brings up something else that I know Glory would love to get across culturally to everyone of we need to have a little bit of a cultural shift. And that is that friendship is tiers. It is not medal placement or whatever you call it. They're not, like there is not a just one best friend and then there's second best friend and there's friend and then like these are tiers.
MySpace lied.
Yes, MySpace was not necessarily understanding friendship yet. So I subscribe to the belief that friendship is tiers. So you have your closest friends or the people who've known you the longest and who by default know the most about you. So yes, to a certain degree, that is a kind of emotional intimacy. And then you have the people who maybe you've known a less lengthy amount of time, but who you are also close to. And that is just a test of time issue. So there are people who remember you when you were much younger, and there's people who don't because they only just met you a couple years ago. But that's all it is. And then there's, yes, at some point, there's a tier that's acquaintances. People you know, people you remember their name, you remember some details about them. And there's potential for friendship to develop, but more than likely, if we're talking about adults, the reason why they're acquaintances with potential is because one or both of you have a lack of discretionary time to devote to exploring each other's personalities and time together. And that's all it is that it's just a lack of discretionary time. So, like, to me, friendship is tiers. And so for me, at the very top, the tier is the people I've known the longest, the people who've just literally stuck around me and stayed in contact with me, not necessarily every day, every week, or even every month. Because quite honestly, if you are my friend or we are even friendly, you more than likely have ADHD or you grew up around someone you love who has ADHD. So you are used to me being this way. And so that means you get me and you get my quirks and you get that I can be flaky. Like, seriously, y'all, the name of the game with ADHD is flaky. And it's flaky is not really
croissants.
We are flaky croissants. But the truth is our flakiness is not actual flakiness. It is a lack of available dopamine, which means sometimes we don't have enough dopamine to respond to your text message or your email for days, weeks, months. We still love you. We just don't have the dopamine to express and actually use to respond to you. We don't mean to be flaky. You know, did you know there are actual human beings in this world who have adequate dopamine and they are still flaky, and it's because they don't value you? And so they don't value responding to you. That is not the case with people with ADHD, y'all. I'm just saying. At least not most. I mean.
But like, that was something I thought would bring up about, if you have ADHD, you have dopamine problems and utilizing it in enough dopamine. And part of that is just essentially executive function, how long you can concentrate and think about things. And so that's why, yes, if you have ADHD or similar, you're very much going to be in this situation where, it's always one or two close friends. And then there's a lot of people you call friends, you talk to from time to time. And it's because you've only got the mental energy to really keep up with one or two people. And then the rest, well, you just have to prioritize. You don't have, and then as adults, it's how much discretionary time, and you've only got enough discretionary time to invest so much with so many people.
Mm-hmm.
And if, for some, they work it out by having more group activities so they can get in that time with multiple people together at once.
Yeah.
But if you have to do one-on-one mostly, yeah, it's going to be just 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you have more discretionary time. But
It's literally the reason in my mid-20s I used to plan parties and just invite everyone I was friends with, or, again, that acquaintance with potential, as an opportunity for them to come by and socialize and hopefully get along with my other friends, because then that meant maybe we could do group things together.
mm-hmm.
But as a way to get that literal socializing time in with them, to help nurture those friendships and nurture those acquaintances that with potential for more. But like, again, parties are optional. You don't have to come to a party. You just were invited. And it was a way to kind of like, hey, if you want to get that time in with me, I have a thing. You can just stop by and you can go when you please. And so you don't have to use up all your dopamine for an intense one-on-one interaction for a couple hours. Because let's be honest, if you're neurodivergent, it's using up a bunch of dopamine to socialize, to keep nurturing friendships. It's using up dopamine.
I mean, like, but here's the, Jennifer has a great example of what it's when you don't
Jennifer
mask.
says, I have one friend that I consider my absolute best friend on this planet. She's known me for almost 40 years and puts up with all my quirks and still loves me for me. That is wonderful.
And that's what a real friendship is they know who you are and they still like you. Like, I would question anyone who said they were Laura's friend and did not like her for her love of horror genre.
Oh God, Laura lights up when she talks about like classic monsters. She just lights up, like an inner light bulb goes off, and she's like, "It's amazing!" And it's
and
like,
if you don't like her with that, then you're not really a friend. Because that is a big part of Laura, is her love of this genre and how it works and the aspects of it and just how and everything.
Do you mind if I'm a Disney adult?
right
at the same time.
Yeah. Hence, I'm going to be in San Diego a little extra time.
Yeah.
Perhaps Disney.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool. I wish I lived near one of the Disney locations. I wish I lived much closer.
Yeah. But I mean, but this is part of who Laura is. It's, real friendship is you take all the parts of them, you let them know if, if you are happy to participate or not with them in different aspects.
Yeah.
Like Glory would totally, totally within her right as a good friend with Laura to go, I love that you love the horror movies, but I am not watching that with you. That is just not going to happen.
Oh, that's so true. I found some horror that I like. I have worked hard. I found like comedy horror. I do actually enjoy, but still I have to watch it during the daytime because cannot watch it at night because I have a very active imagination. Yes, Disney. But like, again, yes, you are great, Laura.
Thanks.
You are. So like, it's one of those of, okay, it's, you don't love people despite that they're into Disney and despite the fact they're into classic movie monsters. You love that.
They own silent films on DVD.
Right? Yeah. Or they own all these and they're like, and you're like, okay, well, it's your birthday. What do you want to do? And they're like, I just want to order pizza and have you watch silent films with me. And it's like, okay.
Some Lon Chaney Sr.
Yeah, it's like we'll watch Lon Chaney, but no Dr. Kilgari.
At least not at night, okay? It could only be during the day. I have to sleep. So, like,
have you seen Lon Chaney Sr. as the Phantom of the Opera?
No.
He's terrifying.
He is really good at that.
No, because I need to sleep, y'all. And Tom is not available during the most days because he works.
He has the half mask with like gauze hanging down to cover the mouth, but he can still talk. Like, it's a full face of creep. It's not just, let me get the avant-garde. quarter face mask. No, let's put hooks in my nose to distort it. Let's dilate my eyes. Let's do all of these crazy like things to my cheeks to make them even more ridiculous. Like his makeup is just out of this world. Oh my gosh. He's so good.
But yeah, but part of being friends is you like that they are happy in what they really enjoy,
Yeah.
even if it's not for you,
Right.
because you
It's not
want them to be
necessarily
happy.
your passion, but you love that they are passionate about it and they're willing to share that enthusiasm with you. And, so you sort of ride on their passion coattails in order to do it with them, because that's what friendship is. So again, I want to reiterate, even though I feel like most adults know this, I feel it needs to be said because at a certain point, I was in my late 20s and still didn't quite know this. So maybe I'm saying it for younger glory. So bear with me. People who want you to give up your passions, or at least don't like show it around me, they are not your true friends. They are merely passing time with you till someone better comes along. It is better to be alone than to waste your time with those kind of people. Even though it feels like, well, but I'll be alone forever. You really won't. I promise you won't. But also, if you're already wasting your time with people who are just killing time with you till someone better comes along, then you don't have that time to devote to developing a new friendship with someone with real potentiality. Okay? So the scariest thing for me in my early 20s was realizing I'm happier being alone than with people who don't really fully accept me for me. And so if you fully accept me for me, you accept that I love to make things, particularly edible things, so like wine making, baking breads, baking cookies, making whole like themed party meals. Like I like making things, but I also like dressing up. Oh yeah. Y'all may not have figured out I am very happy in a pair of fairy wings. And that I know it's silly, but I still want to do it, even though I know I'm an adult. Like, do you know how many people have literally stopped being my friends with me once they saw in my 20s that I was wearing full adult-sized fairy wings inside my house?
My sibling.
I literally had someone turn around. I opened the front door, right? They came in, they saw this. What are you doing? I was like, I'm just cleaning today. I had on a tiara, an actual rhinestone tiara, and freaking full-size fairy wings, and I was vacuuming. And they had dropped by the house. They saw this, and I'm like, I'm cleaning. They're like, you cleaning this get up? I was like, yeah, it makes me feel special and less like I'm doing drudgery. And they were like, and then they started stuttering. You know what? I have to go. I was like, okay, bye. Because I thought at the moment that they had just remembered that they had forgotten, like, they were running errands. That was why they stopped by. And I thought that they had just remembered they had a different errand that they really had to get done. Like, yeah. Thank you, Tom. And like, because like I have ADHD, so I thought they were like that too. No, y'all, they ghosted me and never responded to another phone call or text message ever again. And literally when they were at the same party I had been invited to, they beelined out and like literally drove away. It's not like I was like going grocery shopping in this, okay? I was just vacuuming and dusting the house in a full-on tiara and fairy wings and regular clothes. I wasn't nude or something. And I answered the door. I mean, the vacuum was still on the carpet. Like, but they could, and I'm like, and at first I was kind of hurt. Mm-hmm. And then I realized, you must not have really liked me for me if you're not cool with the fact that I will wear weird costumes while I clean the house. Y'all, it's actually, I don't know why, but it makes it so much more fun for me to scrub toilets in a costume. I can't explain it. I don't know why I'm like this, but it's funny. Like, I love to catch my reflection in the mirror, and I'm like dressed up like one of Santa's reindeer with the full on antlers, and I've got a red nose on, and I'm scrubbing toilets. It's funny to me. I just, it amuses me, and it's not hurting anyone else, so I don't see a problem. But apparently, this person just could not ever speak to me again. Were you really ever my actual friend? You certainly weren't accepting of me or compassionate.
Yeah.
Like, how wild is that? But yeah, and I mean, we had been going pretty strong as friends for about 6 or 8 months when this happened. And I'm just like, oh, if anything, all that's happened is I've doubled down and I get weirder earlier in friendships, because better you know now how weird I get. So every one of you, if you ever try to drop by my house, I want you to be fully prepared that I'm going to be in some weird getup or absolutely comfortable in lounge pants and like look like a pile of dirty laundry just walking around, because like I want to be comfy. Okay. Yeah, I agree, Spence, but you know what? Better her problem than mine, right?
But again, and if anything, and we'll talk about this more next hour, but one of the real lessons you learn as you're older, once you get past high school and college, is one of the best things you can do for your friendship is be yourself, and to not compromise about being yourself. Because why invest energy in a friendship that's not going to last anyway, because they aren't really wanting to be friends with who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
And also, that way there's no surprise later of like they thought you were someone else, or you thought they were someone else than they actually are. And it's like, well, that friendship was never going to work. We just wasted some time. Why?
Yeah, I'm just a super whimsical person. And I now tell people that, like, honestly, within the first hour when they meet me, of just so you know, I'm very whimsical. And I will just tell people that. And like a couple people have done a double take of like, oh, okay. And then later the second, third hour, maybe at a party, they'll come back. What does that mean then? And I'll be like, now that I have your interest, be aware. I love tea parties, both costumed and not. I'm fine with both. Of course, I do prefer costumed. Okay. And I consider just regular clothes and fairy wings a costume. But yes, I also own several tiaras. So at a party, I can totally distribute tiaras because I feel like everybody should have a tiara. And I don't care your gender identification. Everyone needs a tiara, in my personal opinion. Tom knows because I've tried to fit him for tiaras before. And yes, I'm like, here, check from the catalog. You have to pick one. That's literally a quote of I said he had to pick one. So of like people, and you know what? Some people are like, well, that's fascinating. And other people are like, oh, Yeah. And I'm like, yes, goodbye now. Bye. Never speak to me again. Bye-bye now. Like, because what does it matter? I'm not putting it on you necessarily, but I am offering. I do believe in consent.
Someone else who's got crowns.
I have 1 crown and 2 tiaras.
I wasn't sure if we'd be able to pack any, though, because we're bringing all the food for a whole week for 8 people. So, and we only have a tiny Yaris. It's an itty bitty bug car. But I will absolutely wear other people's crowns. And I also know how to make paper crowns because I got skills.
I can fold napkins into paper crowns.
Ooh, very nice. I mean, these are important skills, y'all. I genuinely believe this.
So one thing that is nice about my siblings is they accept my need to cosplay for some things. And like if it's a Comic-Con or if it's Halloween or whatever, and if I don't do it, they're like, what's wrong? Yeah. Like, what's going on? Do you need help? Do you need to vent? What is happening? And sometimes they'll even embrace it and have me help them with theirs. So it's like, yes, share my love of
costuming. Exactly. And like, So it has been hilarious in my life several times where, say, for instance, I've thrown a party and Cheryl and Everett have come. Now, y'all have met Everett before. He is really straight-laced. I don't know how to put it either way. He is the most straight-laced friend I have. And yet, more than a few times when I was offering crowns at a party, Everett's like, okay, and puts one on and goes along with it. And that's what I mean of like, it's not his passion, but he is happy to share in it. That's part of the friendship. It's not his thing, but he knows, hey, this is what we're doing right now. And he goes along with it because he knows I'm having a good time. And that is his way of showing support. And also, yeah, he'll start having fun with it. Like, it's fun to see very straight-laced, very serious, grumpy, curmudgeonly Everett with a crown, and then eventually putting on the fairy wings because his son wanted to put them on. And, you know, prancing around the backyard a little bit so we could get some video of this. Just to please his son and me, knowing we're all having fun and we're all giggling and having a good time. Like, that's what I mean. It doesn't have to be their thing, but they're willing to go along with it because they know you love it and because you're having a good time and it's in the moment and it's a good time. That's what I mean. Friends don't have to share the same geeks, the same passions, but they are happy to step into each other's worlds and have a good time for a couple hours, a couple days, whatever, you know, the time is. And they're not afraid of how ridiculous they look. When you are with people you love, you're not worrying about how you look. Now, that is not to say that some people think they love people and are still worried about how they look. But I'm just saying, you're going to have an easier time if you develop your own compassion, and that you will attract more people who are also working on their compassion. People who are working on their compassion get to a point where they are going to understand that it's more important to have a good time with the people you love than to worry about how you appear to the outside world.
That's just stressful.
All we have are moments together. That is all we have in this world. And then it ends. Then we end. So it's more important to have these ridiculous, fun, shared moments than to worry about the mask of public appearance.
Yeah, hence, yeah, totally. I would howl at the moon.
Oh, yeah.
Be completely silly. Because I think also one of the problems you see that comes from the teenage years, and it's hard for people to unlearn, is that wanting to fit in and join a group, and then the group's one of like, but how much do you want to join? How much can we humiliate you? And essentially this very negative, you know, view of what is a friendship, because that's not a friendship.
No. Friends would never willingly humiliate you. Friends would never willingly stand by while you are humiliated. Friends wish to celebrate you and protect you and support you. And if it's not any of those things, it's not friendship. Because all humans need nurturing to grow and blossom. And that is what we as friends can do for each other, is we can offer that supportive environment. So it's something to think about. When I was young, I had a hard time finding people like that. And part of it, a lot of older people told me, is you're young, you want friends of your age, but let's be honest, people in their late teens and early 20s are just immature. They're not done baking yet, right? They're still cooking. And they all told me, just be patient. And I saw what they meant, but I am like not patient at all. It is my fatal flaw. That is actually my fatal flaw, is I'm very impatient.
Really, no patience.
I mean, seriously, my saving grace is timers and ADHD. Like literally ADHD actually helps me in this regard, because if I set the timer, I won't forget something. And then I go distract myself and I really do forget about whatever is the thing that I am not patient about. It is actually very helpful. ADHD can be a really lovely, useful tool sometimes. Not all the time, just sometimes. So again, it was like, but I'm not patient. I can't find people like that. And honestly, what I did do in my early 20s was I found slightly older people in their mid 20s or their late 20s, who had gone a little bit further on that journey and who were more supportive. And that was kind of what bridged me through. And even then, it wasn't a perfect system. I mean, y'all know I lost most of my friends in the divorce, with the exception of Cheryl and Everett.
I think going where people have common interests with you is a good way to find friends.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's hanging out online on AuthorTube or going to comic conventions in person where you can talk to people as you're standing in line, kind of thing. It's just going where people have a similar interest is a great way to have something to talk about, to open the conversation, and you have a almost guarantee that you have something in common.
Yeah. I met Unity at a convention, at a sci-fi fantasy convention. But only after I had been there for a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
And several people said, oh my God, after they talked to me, they said, oh my God, you got to meet Unity. And I was like, what? Because we both got weird names? Because everybody's name is on their badge at these things. And they're like, well, yeah, that too. But no, like you two sound so similar. So I think like by the end of the second day, Unity had also heard that there's this new woman at this convention. You've got to meet her. You two sound so much alike. You know, because of autism. Because we both were undiagnosed at the time. And we did meet at the end of the second day, and we got along like peas and carrots. We immediately just fell in together. And there wasn't anything we disagreed about. I don't think we have found something we disagreed about. It took many years to find anything where she and I actually disagreed opinion-wise about anything. Like literally, I think it was 7 years in when we finally found something that we disagreed about. That's how long it took. And eventually, through a real quirk of fate, she ended up marrying somebody who lived in my area, because we met in New Orleans. And several years later, like what was it, 4 or 5 years after we'd met, she met somebody who ran a convention here in town, and he lived in this area. She married him and moved here. And I was the first person she contacted after settling in. And if anything, it helped our friendship, just because we could spend more time together, but we still don't have a ton of time. But yeah, that was like what, 25 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
Something out there. So again, like it's shared interest. Cheryl and Everett, I met going to college. Cheryl had a dorm room in the same dorm as me. And she tended to stay on the weekends because she did not want to go home. And I tended to stay on the weekends because my mother lived in North Mississippi, so I was not going to, go there. And so we had free time together. And Cheryl and Everett had started dating because Everett had a car. No comment.
My parents started dating because my dad had a car and a computer.
I mean, so that's how I met Cheryl, and then I met Everett a month later. Tanya, I met through work. We got along really well within, literally in the same day of meeting at work at the library. Tanya was working part-time, and we just hit it off. Again, neurodivergent people. We just hit it off, and we would chat in the stacks all the time. And we would talk about, can you believe this? Can you believe that? Can't believe that person walked in and they told me I need a book called Mockingjay. And I'm like, ma'am, do you mean Hunger Games? No, it's called Mockingjay. It's How to Kill a Mockingjay.
The crossover we didn't know we needed.
Right? Yes. Do you know how many people have walked into the South Mississippi Public Library demanding the book How to Kill a Mockingjay? We literally, at one point, all the librarians in the system were keeping track, and we were over 20 requests so far for How to Kill a Mockingjay. For reals. The last time I checked, the request list was up to 28, and that was like many years ago, so God knows what it is now. So, and then even after Tanya left the library, a couple months after that, she needed a place to stay for a month. She's like, can I crash on your couch? All my other friends in college have moved away. I literally don't know anybody right now in town. And I'm like, it's not like I'm going to let you sleep in your car. Of course, come stay with me. And Tanya stayed with us for a month. We had a guest room. And it was like, hey, we get along. This works. So, like, those are the many different ways I've made friends. The friends that have lasted the longest, who actually stuck by and who welcomed me being quirky and weird. I occasionally run into Everett and Cheryl at the next university that I transferred to. They also transferred there later. And we'd literally run into each other at the halls in, like, the English department and stuff, because, you know, everybody's got to take English 101 and 102. And History 101 and 102 was in the same building, and I'd run into them, and we'd like, how are you? And they're like, oh, we're starving, but we're between classes. And I'd literally pull out, you know, granola bar, candy bar, whatever. Here you go. I got to go to class. Bye. Or like they'd run into me later, like, here, take some money. Thanks for the bar, you know. And I'm like, thank you. I needed a Coke. You know, that kind of just in passing kind of friendship for many years. But essentially, they liked me as they kept wanting to come back around. And so it was just like kind of letting that happen. For years, I wanted to be closer friends with Cheryl. But she was busy. She actually wasn't so sure she wanted to be friends with me. Because I reminded her too much of her mom. That was the problem. And it wasn't until, you know, she kind of came to peace with her mom and her sister liked me that she was like, okay. And then we ended up working together at the library, and we got along really well as coworkers. And again, that is actually when, because like I was essentially much closer friends with Everett for years before that, because Everett and I always had cooking recipes to exchange. Anytime we had 5-10 minutes together. So again, like shared interests and opportunities. Sometimes with friendships, you just literally have to give them the time to blossom on their own. Hi, Maggie. I hope you feel better soon, sweetie. But yeah, we're going to take a little bio break. We'll see you back here in a few minutes. What are we going to talk about, Tom?
Let's talk about setting boundaries and what it takes to actually make a real friend. We'll talk about this psychology has been studied, and we know the numbers.
Okay. We'll talk about the science of it, because there actually is some science that's kind of wild, frankly. We will see y'all in just a few minutes. Now's a wonderful time. Make sure you have something to drink, maybe a little snacky snack.
I don't know what happened. Hello. I guess I shall entertain the pizza or the people with my pizza eating.
We lost track of time. Glory is talking and still has not even unmuted herself. Thankfully, she's mostly talking stuff about me, so nothing anyone else needs to hear.
I heard noise again.
Yeah, that would be her cackling.
Ah.
We were just talking about the many, many things it took for us to be friends.
Ah.
I thought Tom was watching the time.
I was, and
was
then,
distracted.
ADHD happened.
Yeah,
I was distracted doing day job stuff.
that's understandable. And I was getting something to eat.
But yeah, it took a lot of things for us to become friends, including a lot of shared experience. Is that the cinnamon or the chocolate babka?
This is the cinnamon, and this is the chocolate babka.
Chocolate and walnut.
This is my chicken Alfredo pizza.
Ooh, yummy.
Buy one, get one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and I also got some cheese. A little crispy.
So one of the things that also helps us be friends is just simply time. And it's not just because of shared experience time, but also we've gotten older. One of the things that is often misunderstood, because we talk mostly about neurodivergent disorders as a childhood thing versus a lifelong situation. And what does that actually imply? So yes, emotional regulation is harder. It takes much. It's not that neurodivergent people never can emotionally regulate. It's just that often our brains take longer to develop those functions, and so instead of it being within the first 10 years of our life, it could be till we're in our 30s for it to fully develop. Just it takes longer for the structures to develop. And the same for it's why when they talk about growing out of it, they're not really right, but they're also not entirely wrong, because there are a lot of brain structures that will eventually develop. It just was a later age when it developed. And so yeah, as I've gotten older, it's been easier for us to have a friendship between Gloria and I, because we can better emotionally communicate as our brains developed. And so it's also understandable where, especially if someone's neurodivergent and they're friends with a neurotypical, if they may just grow out of the friendship as they change with age. That's fine and normal.
We're moving away.
Yeah. As Gloria likes to remind herself and others, there's a good saying, and it's honest, about friendship, which is, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And there's no judgment about any of it. Sometimes you can only you're friends because you work at the same place. But just know that's what your friendship's based on. It is, not a lifelong friendship. It could be, but that requires more work. Part of what I wanted to bring up about the psychology we now know about friendship is that it takes literal time around someone to develop a friendship. And it's simply part of the socializing of, we trust somebody. The longer we are around them, the more familiar our brain is with them. That's kind of what they were getting at in Star Trek Next Generation when they talk about how Data misses Tasha Yar.
Mm-hmm.
is that she was a familiar part, and there's now just a hole where she was in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've science, psychologists, they're just on the verge of, what is morally and ethically okay to do, and sometimes not, have done the studies and figured out the answer is surprisingly simple numbers of a basic level of friendship takes 10 to 20 hours. A good level of trust takes about 50 hours.
And they're talking about shared hours where you're literally
Yes.
spending in the physical company in the same room, where you're interacting with each other. So not just standing or sitting in the same room, but actually interacting. So they're talking about literal interaction time. So a conversation, even if it is, say, across a room as you two do work, if the conversation is ongoing, then that counts. But honestly, it also counts if it's text messaging. But with text messaging, you're not getting eye contact at all. And you also need 5 minutes of total accumulated eye contact to love a person and for them to love you. When people who've given birth talk about not feeling a bond with the baby, there is a literal treatment for it. And it is just to gaze into the baby's eyes for 5 whole minutes. And it can be all at once. It can be in 10-second increments. But you literally just have to log 5 minutes. Not 4 minutes, not 6 minutes, 5 minutes, and you will fall in love with anybody you make that much eye contact with. Now, this is not necessarily romantic love or sexual love. It's just attachment love. So I want to make that clear that there's then other kinds of love. Hello, Nia. There's many, actually. There's so many kinds of love. But we're just talking about the simple, basic attachment love. And that's all it takes for anyone who's like, I just don't really feel a connection with the baby. That's literally all you need. But it also works on adults. It works between two adults. It works between an adult and a child. I give you this information with, please don't abuse it. You can manipulate people with this, accidentally or on purpose. Please.
Do be careful.
Only for good and not evil.
And Spence, I'm guessing she's quoting from a doctor.
Yes, make eye contact when feeding them. Yeah. So that is all that is needed is 5 minutes of eye contact in order for a human to feel an attachment to another thing. And it even works on not real eyes. Why are scientists like this? They literally painted eyes on a rock. It wasn't even very good eyes. I saw the picture of the eyes. Very little shading. But they put eyes and they had people gaze at the rock, and then people felt an attachment, an emotional attachment to the rock after 5 minutes of staring at what, were painted eyes, y'all.
You really can just put googly eyes on your pet rock and you will feel genuine affection for it.
This is how we're wired as humans. Please, again, don't abuse this. But be aware that that is what is required to develop a friendship, a basic, simple friendship. Yes. Because we put eyes on dolls. And the baby has looked at the doll.
And it is hardwired into us. It is hardwired long before we became human.
Long before we were primates. We were already like this. Yes.
And that is also why scientists theorize the existence of the cuteness factor.
Yes. By the way, Scientists have also tested this on what if it's just one-eyed? Is it the same amount of time? And the answer is no. So one-eyed people who only have one eye need 10 minutes. Not they, as a one-eyed person, need to look at someone else for 10 minutes, but in order for other people to feel emotional attachment to them, they then have to spend 10 minutes looking at the one eye. Why is human wiring like this? I don't know. It just is what it is. So, yes, someone with an eye patch has a harder time, has to spend more time working on friendships because people will take longer to feel emotionally attached to them. And that is why it's advantageous for them to appear two-eyed with, say, a false eyeball, a prosthetic. Isn't human neurology wild? I think so. Yes. People don't feel as emotionally attached to people with one eye or no eyes, like no actual eyeballs. Humans can still attach if there is something that looks like where the eye should be. Like so.
And that is also why humans are wired to see faces
where there are not.
In anything.
Like WALL-E.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We will see it in a wall.
So, like, for instance...
See a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of Tom's girlfriends had a cat who was born without eyeballs. The cat was born with eye cavities, but not eyeballs. So the cat, I believe, actually had eyelashes. Like all cats have a little bit of eyelash. But essentially, because the cat had no eyeballs, she never usually opened her eye cavities. Except once when she got scared because a cold, wet nose sniffed her little booty. And it was like, oh, those do open. I had always just wondered, but I wasn't going to ask because that's weird. But I had kind of, idle curiosity. Oh, yeah, no, they should open them. That was kind of funny. I mean, once she calmed down, it was funny. But Tom's girlfriend was easily attached to this cat because this cat never looked away, unlike most other cats who don't want intense eye contact. And because as a kitten, because she found her walking as a kitten along the road, like just had been abandoned. And she heard the cat, I think she was walking, and she heard the kitten, and there was this adorable little kitten with her eyes closed and the eyes never opened. And so because the little kitten's eyes never opened, she could stare at this kitten and the kitten never looked away. So she very quickly got attached to it. So again, like, human neurology is kind of wild, but this is like at a deep primal level. Yes, intense eye contact is very threatening to most cats, but not this one since she couldn't see. Of course, I love to watch this little cat with echolocation. It was adorable with her ears like little satellite dishes because she really would use it that way to echolocate other cats if they were playing or when her human came home. It was fun. She was a really cool cat. But it's something to be aware of if you do not wish to get emotionally attached to a person, you need to be careful and manage the amount of eye contact you make with this person. And you may realize that you feel emotionally attached to somebody who's rather toxic. And it has to do with eye contact. So it's something to be aware of. But also keep in mind, one of the things I have noticed about many people, particularly neurotypical people, is when they go out to eat, to friends, or even to romantic partners, they sit side by side. They don't make eye contact. I like to sit across from people I go out to eat with so I can make that eye contact.
And if you are someone who gets uncomfortable with eye contact and you very much feel the simple trick is to just learn to look at people's eyebrows and look right above them, because it will still give them the the appearance and response of, eye contact without you needing to do, respond with eye contact, or, to look at their lips and help you, especially if you have any auditory dyslexia. Noticing how lips move also makes it just easier to converse and understand what they said.
Yeah, I have auditory dyslexia, so I look at people's mouths a lot. However, most people do feel heard by me because most humans aren't very good at figuring out if people making eye contact with them or not. So, because like anytime you're making eye contact, you're not actually entirely making intense eye contact. When they track eye gaze movement, you're looking at eyebrows, you're looking at the hairline, you're looking at the cheeks, at the lips, at the chin, at the ear, you're looking all over. And so it's normal to just the eyes kind of move a little, even when you're quote unquote making eye contact. But I tend to look at people's lips when they're talking because I have sometimes, like, I don't know, something just happens in my brain. And when they're talking, it'll just suddenly be garbled for a second, then it's fine. It's like there was static coming through my head at the same time. And so reading their lips helps like me kind of narrow down what they were saying if I had a moment of static. Or if suddenly people were talking next to me, I cannot. It's all noise now. It's terrible. If we're in a crowded room, do not talk to me. Just text message me. That is the kindest thing you can do.
But yes, and we know, like, if you want like to have a close friendship, like to have a best friend, you need 100 hours. Plus or minus about 20%. It just depends on the person and the actual experiences, but it's 100 hours. That's it. And that is the simple answer to why is it harder to make friends as adults than as kids? Because we do not have recess together to do these and playtimes together to
We don't
do
have
these
study hall together anymore.
To get these hours in. That's
I
all.
never had study hall.
Study hall is a sign that your school's not very good at classroom scheduling.
I see.
And was not offering enough variety of classes at a variety of times. Mm-hmm. But study hall can be beneficial. They also called it library time or individual project time.
Uh-huh.
It's the same thing.
Okay.
But essentially, children and teenagers, in theory, have more discretionary time. They have more time that they can spend with people they want to spend it with. Versus adults, their schedules tend to be far more packed between work and adulting and childcare.
Feed yourself.
So if you look at your life and you're like, I wish I had more friends, it's like, well, okay, what time do you have to work on friendships? And if the answer is, I only have time on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 10 a.m. and 12 p.m., then the only thing I can say to you is, well, I guess it's time for you to look in the newspapers or wherever to see what get-togethers are happening in your local area, because you need to find people who also have a similar available time block. Because the only way to develop friendships is you literally have to spend time with each other. Conversing, spending time doing something, a shared project, doesn't matter, whatever it is. It's literally what you have to do. And if you don't have any time, as I've had other people say to me, well, I have no time. I have no time. And it's like, then why are you surprised you don't have friends? Like, I am so sorry, but apparently your children are taking up this amount of time. Then literally your only option is the parents of your children's friends, like that they're like.
But I mean, you just have to figure out how can you get that shared time together. And there's art. I just pointed out, Lori pointed out your child's friends' parents. You're going to have shared times together.
Go to the
It's
park
worth,
at the same time.
yeah, it's worth building up those friendships just because you never know when you need that social support, as well as just people to bounce ideas off of and communicate with and see, what a different perspective may know.
These people do not have to be your best friend. Remember, friendship is a tiered system. It's tiers of closeness and shared interests. Like, it's just how close are you? How much do you get along and you agree on certain issues? But y'all, I can honestly tell you, living in South Mississippi, I've had more than a few experiences actually being sort of friendly with people I considered bigots. It is possible to have a type of friendship with people that you categorically disagree with on certain social or financial issues. But in the end, if your house is on fire, you still need people who, will bring you deodorant and underwear, like, who will help you, who will comfort you, who will not abandon you to the wolves. It's still, and yes, over time, don't worry, you can wear those bigots down. It's fine. I've learned. One of the loudest, most, oh God, this man, he was such a loud bigot. It was truly part of his identity. And yet, and like, I mean, like he oh, the vitriol he used to say, and all the time. And yet, I told y'all before about him. And then I found out a family's house burned down, a Black family, and he had them living in one of his trailers for rent-free for 2 years as they rebuilt their lives. Did he stop saying horrible racist things? No. Did people ask him about it? And he said, mind your own business. That was literally when they're like, why you got bad words living in, your one of your trailers? And he's like, mind your own damn business. I live my life. Humans are complex. And I went and talked to that family. It was like, is he oppressing you? What is happening here? And they're like, no, we've heard from people. But he really isn't charging us rent. We had nowhere to live. We were literally, us and our children were sleeping in a car. And he literally drove by the car and saw that we were living in there and was like, you need to drive over here. And we were like, oh, he's like, I got a place that you could stay at. You don't need to be sleeping in your car. Children don't need to be sleeping in cars. And they were like, we don't have any money right now. We lost everything. We don't, the man didn't even, the only one of the two family adults had a driver's license because the driver's license, the other one burned up in the house. And and they didn't even have the money in that moment to, pay the $20 for a reissued driver's license. And he gave him money. He went and bought him groceries. He kept buying him groceries. At a certain point, they had to tell him, we're okay now. 6 months later, we're okay. You can stop buying groceries. We're sure that you'd like to save that money. And he's like, well, if you don't need grocery money, then we need to fix up this car. So that they had two cars. So again, number one, people are complex. Number two, you don't find out the truth of how people are till you live around them, till you see them, you interact with them more. I told the man eventually, I was like, look, I don't think you're a bad person, but it upsets me to hear all this negative talk all the time about other people, particularly about, how well they can tan or not. It just, it makes me feel bad inside to hear so much negativity. You know what he did? He just wouldn't spew that vitriol around me. As soon as he saw me come around the corner to the hardware store, he just stopped talking about that. And he would just start talking about, hardware or who's fixing up what car and stuff. So I'm just here to say, in a highly segregated, divided world, if the only people you find have time to spend with you are some people that you have never wanted to spend time with. You just never know. And again, that's where compassion comes in handy. So I'm not telling anybody how to live their life. But again, I didn't tell that man to stop being such a frickin' bigot. I did say, I don't know that that's all entirely true. Because, but again, I wasn't trying to be confrontational with him. If he asked me what I thought, I said, I just don't know that that is all entirely true. Because I've known many good people of many a skin color and many a religion. And I just think there's good people everywhere. There sure is bad people everywhere. But I think that there's good people. And that would be it. And he's like, okay. But again, and then, finally we had that conversation about, it's just the negativity. It's just, I find like my back stiffens and it just makes me feel bad inside to hear so much negativity. And he's like, okay. And so he just sort of softened a little bit. But that only came months after, like, we just kept running into each other at the Hardee's, at the hardware store, at all these places, at the grocery store. We literally kept running into each other. And yeah, we sort of accidentally, inadvertently kind of became acquaintance friends. And so again, the truth is we all need people to be around because we're social creatures, because we're humans. We're just wired that way. And no amount of neurodivergency is going to change the fact that you're human. So just accept that, but also yeah, we all need people. So if you keep running into the bigots, maybe you could be a compassionate influence. Who knows? Like a gentle one, not trying to ask anybody to change, but maybe just not.
And that brings up the other part I wanted to bring up. I wanted to talk about this hour of something that is very hard to teach kids about, and is something that we usually only develop later in life. Is one of the real secrets to having good friends, is good fences. Good fences do make good neighbors because you know where the edges of your properties are. And in friendships, it's knowing where each other's boundaries are. So people are going to keep going further and further in certain directions, especially emotional directions, until they get pushback, meaning they've found a boundary with that other person. And then the question you see is, do they respect that boundary or not? Because real friends respect those boundaries.
Hence the man, when he's like, what's your problem? And I'm like, it's just a lot of negativity, and it makes all my muscles stiffen, and it makes me feel bad inside just to hear so much negativity. And so that all I just wanted him to do was just not spout so much negativity around me. So he didn't. He's changed because he respected that boundary of, it makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, Gloria was not there to just argue. She wasn't there to, be self-righteous or anything. She was simply going, it's difficult to be around you because of, how my responses are to what you're doing. And, his response, being a human, is, okay, I don't have to, if that's all it is, I can modify that because that's not a major aspect of my needs either. And so good friends are made with good boundaries of being able to say, like, this is what you're okay with, this is what you're not okay with. Some friendships, like some people, like CB mentioned, one of their languages is pranks. That is how they communicate. And other people, that is not something they can handle. That is not within their friendship range. And the question is like, so, do you, will they respect that boundary of like, I'm not someone to prank with. I'm not saying anything about you. I'm just saying I personally cannot handle pranks. They get very upset. I cannot be around those type of people. Versus the ones who are like, oh yeah, I love pranks. Do you love pranks? They're like, yeah. It's like, all right, the war is on. Of, this is their activity. This is their pastime. This is how they like to, show each other they're thinking about each other. Versus like my way of communicating and showing that I am thinking about other people is memes and articles of, everyone who's on Instagram in our groups knows how many memes and articles I share with people through the Instagram of, I think, in case you missed this, you may also enjoy. And then in case you'll tag like who I specifically am thinking of when I see this. Of, because they came up in my thoughts. And that is part of also good friendship is I was thinking of you. Here's what, reminding me of it. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And it's another commonality to build your friendship further on. But yeah, like kids want to be part of a group so bad, they often miss the part of setting the boundaries with their friends. Of, even are they a early to bed, early to rise person, or are they a, I am up till 2 a.m., but I will not be getting out of bed till, 10 a.m.'s early on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Do not ask me to wake up before 10 a.m. Even if I'm sleeping over at your house, do not ask me to go for breakfast. It's not happening. Be a friend. Leave me
I
alone.
once had someone wake me up at their house at 6 a.m. to go out to breakfast, and I was like, and I literally said, half asleep, I thought you loved me. And they're like, I do. That's why I want you to come with me to this great place. I'm like, oh, one time. I'll do it one time. Is this the one time you want?
So my sister, the one who's not married, is awesome. Well, they're both awesome. But she calls me up today and it's like, hey, the Aurora Borealis is going to be visible in Toronto this week. It's on my bucket list. Can I come over? It's like, heck yes. Nice. So she got time off work. She's driving up to Toronto. She has a car, and we are going to drive out to the middle of nowhere and watch the Aurora Borealis.
That's so cool.
And so it's like spontaneous get-togethers can be great for friendships and just knock things off your bucket list. It's great.
Nice.
And so now we're like, okay, where do we want to eat? Like, what else do we need to do? So we've made reservations for that geek bar called Stormcrow Manor. And we are going to go to Snakes and Lattes, which is a board game cafe. And it's like just all the fun things. And I'm so excited. I'm just like, yes, thank you. I'm so excited.
Yeah, a lot of friendship is just having people to share your experiences with. Like, I mean, I love watching shows and movies with Glory and friends, mostly so I can see their enjoyment or their expressions and thoughts. It makes it more enjoyable, the media I'm enjoying, to have others to enjoy it with.
Mm-hmm. It's so much fun to actually have somebody to talk about a TV show or a movie with.
Mm-hmm.
So usually when it's a movie, I'm the first one to see it because I go like midnight opening day in the theater.
Can't imagine how you got into the field you're in.
What? So I am the one who texts my siblings, go watch Across the Spider-Verse now. Like, get your butt in the theater. Go watch it. So I instigate.
Tell me about the miracles of babies. Would you want a spider baby or no?
Smell this baby. It'll make you feel better.
Give her a squeeze.
I don't want to hold the baby.
Mayday.
You'll feel better.
Yeah. So it's just so fun to be able to talk to people about it. And even if there is a show that your friends are not into because it's too dark, because it's based on Hannibal Lecter, what you can do is go on the YouTubes and have pseudo experiences where you watch people react to the TV show. And it's like, yes, I feel validated. We both enjoyed this. So it's not the same, but it can help heal the emptiness a little.
Yeah, like or you find, especially now that we live in the times of YouTube, You can find people who can give you a little bit of analysis and background about those shows your friends like, if they're not ones for you to watch, but so you can still talk about it with them. Or even video games. Of like, I just don't have the time right now to play the Zelda games as much as I'd like to. So I'm just listening to other people talk about all the little things and changes and cool stuff about the new, Tears of the Kingdom. So I can, participate with friends in their memes and their fun and the jokes and stuff. Because again, friends are people who celebrate whatever brings joy to their friends.
Yeah.
In the best ways they can. Because yes, Hannibal Lecter, not for everyone.
I don't know why. The cinematography is fantastic. The sound design is off the charts.
I think that might be it right there.
Is spectacular.
There are some people who just cannot handle squishing sounds in their movies. They just have a no squishy rule.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's why there's people doing analysis of Kablooey. This is what they're being forced to watch so much.
Oh no, people just the adults like Bluey. Of like, speaking of that, actually just remind me of like, also if you want to see what it takes to be a good friend and compassionate, watch Bluey. Bluey is probably one of the most compassionate shows out there, and shows you how to respond even to difficult situations. Because like sometimes we learn through our media and through experiences how to handle stuff, but if you've just never been in those situations, how do you know what to do? Shows like Bluey do help. Sometimes it also helps to get a refresher course on how to communicate now that you're an adult with kids, because kids are definitely their own communications. They're a different world. Eva, I meant like having someone to talk to movies about the details you get into when you're really passionate about it. That's how it can be with parenthood, without anyone down to listen that long.
I mean, like how to manipulate children.
But also just wanting to celebrate, the cool things the kids have learned.
One thing that was really fun was with my nephew. So my sister has 2 kids right now. She's pregnant with her 3rd, due next month. They don't get out and about too much. So what I got to do was, I was in between jobs at the moment. So I went to a museum and I FaceTimed them and got to take a tour of the museum with my nephew, showing him all the sparkly rocks and gemstones, all of the big dinosaur fossils. Like, it was so fun, and just a fun way to connect with their family and let him have an experience by proxy. But like, he's totally into dinosaurs. He's also now super into Iron Man. Like, he designs his own armor and stuff out of cardboard, and he is 5. Yeah, it's super fun. But just finding ways to go about connecting with friends or family can be greatly beneficial. Like, even if he doesn't remember it in a week's time, like, still, my sister enjoyed having him distracted for a bit so that she could have some downtime. So,
yep. Yeah, we used to do that with our nephew. Because raising kids, they take up so much time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And one of the best things you can do as a friend is just help take some of that time load off of
Yep.
their hands.
Yeah.
And you know, kids are fun because everything's still new for them. So you get to re-experience that newness with them.
Yeah, like they had a whole back room filled with gemstones and rocks and stuff that were under UV light. So they were really glowy. It was really cool. Like, look at all the. Can you name what color that is? What color is that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's a memory from mom too. And he may not remember that moment, but he'll remember who was there before he could remember.
Mm-hmm.
And we, you know, kids, you know, even if you don't really have much memory development yet, you still know who's familiar and who's not familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling.
But yeah, friendship is just finding time to spend with each other and to remind each other that they are being thought of in your life. You know, and that is how, and that's another part that is an odd thing for children to understand about adult relationships and friendships. That, you know, even adults find difficult at first to figure out, which is you don't have to see each other every day.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to constantly check in and go, we're still good, if you haven't talked. With real friends, you know you're good unless there's something has been brought up that there is a problem. You realize, like, if you don't talk, it's because life happens. And just, you know, you haven't had time to, you know, share together.
Sometimes we will write handwritten letters to each other, my siblings and I, and just mail them. Like, even though we talk on the phone all the time, it's just like an extra special thinking of you. And then, of course, you got to do like the wax seal. But for a while there, one of my sisters, the married one, and I, this was years ago, we would write each other as fictional characters from different books and shows and stuff. And so relay our adventures in letter form. It was so fun. Yeah.
All right. I think it's probably about time for another break.
Okay. What are we going to talk about when we come back?
Well, that actually kind of reminded me of, let's talk about the many ways to play together. You kind of forget as adults that part of friendship is play. And we don't always
Kittens.
realize and think about what things are play. Including venting to each other can be play.
You mean where you plot the revenge
Yes.
that you have no intention of ever doing?
Yes. But how many feet of rope would you need? And what size tarp do you think they'd fit in?
Yeah.
Do you have enough bleach or lime?
Is there ever enough? Anyway. Also, again, I'd like to point out, now's a wonderful time. Make sure you have something to drink and a little snack. If you haven't already gotten a snack, maybe check in with your bladder. We'll see y'all in approximately 10 minutes. Me, me, me. Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the final hour of Tom's love letter to his younger self. Here, young Tom, you don't have to be so alone or surrounded by so many sociopaths. There's alternatives, my sweet nihilistic self. You're also muted. Also, apparently, Roy was demanding to go outside, and so Laura had to acquiesce.
I mean, how could you say no to Roy?
I can't.
You can't convince me he does not practice those tones and pitches.
Oh, yeah.
Just pluck those heartstrings. Play them like a harp. But yes, I thought the last one is, all right, so we've talked about, kind of what makes good friendship and how to do them. Now, where do you find them? How do you keep these friends? And part of it is playing together. So, I mean, oddly, one of the things that's actually easier now to do is, people don't go to bars as much, and the arcades are mostly gone, and a lot of the social hangouts just aren't there. There are, across the US at least, and a bunch of the Western world, a lot more game stores. And game stores know that to get people to buy games, they have to have a place to play games, and they have to want to play the games. So they have a lot of activities throughout the week and month to get people to interact and play games. And so it's definitely something to go check out, is your local game stores, and see what they have going on, and if it's a kind of schedule you can keep going back to. Because, the first time you go, you may not meet anyone you like, but it's going to change throughout every month. And so it's to keep going back. Or like the YMCA of, or, was it Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Of just, you find a common interest.
Every town I ever lived in, my mother, first one of the things she would do once it was like, I'm bored, we don't know anybody, we have no friends. First thing she'd do is, let's find out if there's any craft groups in town. And if she would what she would do is, this was, in fairness, this was in the 80s and 90s. She would go get the newspaper for a week and look through, because usually most craft groups have a weekly or sometimes a monthly thing. And usually the newspaper would have it in the what's happening around town. And if she didn't see anything, she would then go to, like, y'all, there's usually at least one craft store in every town. She would go there and ask, so, is there any, like, group meets? Anything? Now, what my mother actually used to say was, my daughter likes to craft. Is there anything that we could go to? Everyone there would be over the age of 65, but me and my mom. But nevertheless, I mean, they were nice people. It really taught me how to make friends with much older people, which I think is actually a very useful skill. It served me very well later in my 20s, because it meant I aced job interviews because I'm used to chatting with older folks, people who are near retirement and who are just retired. I'm great at chatting with them, as I was used to chatting with newly retired or about to retire folks in these craft groups. But yeah, like quilter stuff, crochet, knitting, just any sort of fiber art group my mom was interested in. Like, I'm not saying you're going to make a best friend for life, but you'll at least meet some people and they'll tell you what's going on in town and make you feel welcome. It's a good start.
There's also now maker spaces.
Yeah.
Or people who want to make 3D objects or who want to build stuff for cosplay. Those have opened up around. I know we have one in our town. But yeah, you need to find a commonality, or and yeah, go to like the game stores with video games and stuff. People will post up if they have video game groups, especially if like you're in a college town. There are surprisingly often every semester a new group who are just there to play video games and are just looking for people who want to have someone to play with in the same room and to play as teams and develop group play, for maybe they even want to do an MMO or something. But you'd be surprised how often it is like they want though a local place where they could then go hang out afterwards. And yeah, you can play online with your friends.
Yeah.
You can build new friendships playing online.
Like there's all sorts of writing sprint live streams, which is how I've met all these people, and some of them I've now met in real life, which is pretty cool. And it went well. I'm not saying every time you meet people in real life it's going to work out well, but it could. You could give it a try. Shared interest is a great one. Honestly, I have made friends by just going to the dog park on the same schedule every week.
Mm-hmm.
I did have a dog with me, though. Just fair warning.
And then, of course, there's the classic ones, like the library. We usually have a couple book clubs.
Yeah.
If you have a kind of genre of book you like to read, you find people to talk with, and by talking about books, you can figure out who you have what in common with, and you can build up friendships that way.
It's true.
But it is part of making a time effort. And you're going to have to, devote a certain amount of time to this to build friendships.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to find a way to do it that you enjoy, that you like being there and you like doing this activity.
Yeah. I have a love of theater, of stage theater, plays, from our mother, because she loved to go and she had no friends to go with her. So she would drag me, like literally 30 years of my life, I've been dragged to stage productions. I enjoy them now. I don't love them the same way my mother did. But whenever I would go during the intermission, I would usually end up striking up conversations with a variety of people. I didn't necessarily make friends for life, but I did make acquaintances. And it's nice then when you run into them again in various things at various locations, it's nice having a familiar face that welcomes you. If you keep running into them, there's the great potential for friendship. But again, like, I understand that on the surface, this appears like a very pro-extrovert, very con-introvert way to make friends. I do want to point out, though, that the nice part about going to events around your town where, for instance, there's plays or games or craft things is you have a shared thing that everyone is paying attention to, and they're not necessarily like intense social contact. So I really do feel that it is actually pro-introvert, even though, yes, you have to leave your house. I am so sorry. I know that many people, for a variety of reasons, anxiety, don't like to leave their house. And I really do get that. The world is a big, scary place where lots of things can happen, like weather. But nevertheless, give it a try. Just see. Drag a friend with you. If you need an emotional support human. That's what my mother used to do. I was her emotional support human. And I was very shy. Y'all all see me and you're like, oh, such an extrovert. And it's true, I am an extrovert. But that doesn't mean I don't experience shyness. And I definitely experienced shyness as a child and a teenager and in my early to mid 20s. It wasn't till much later in my late 20s when I started doing home parties at strangers' houses filled with strangers that I started realizing that I was developing the skills I needed to essentially hit it off with any stranger. But before that, for the first, 25 plus years of my life, I was very shy. And it's not that I don't get shy once in a while, even today. I do get shy, but thankfully it doesn't last as long. So again, I just want to point out there are lots of cool ways to meet people. So for instance, one of the things that Tom and I have been doing lately is we like to go to bingo night, the last bingo of the month in town. And we have a good time. It's fun. People are nice. We love to people watch. And if you have subscribed to my Substack, you have even everything I quoted in the latest Substack of things overheard at bingo, we have literally overheard at this bingo place. So real people have said these things, and we delight in it. We love the things we overhear. But people are also real supportive there. They're very nice. There's very little to no eye contact, by the way. Just saying, if you are a shy or introverted person and you're like, I don't want to look at people's faces all the time, there's very little eye contact actually. So this might be for you. And it's a shared group activity. It is surprisingly affordable here to do it. And everybody loves it when people win. Strangers cheer us when we win. It's kind of wild. And we can then cheer other people. So we can cheer strangers and everyone appreciates the support. It's a really nice environment and we've met some new people. Now, again, it's not that we've made friends for life yet, but it's nice to meet people, to chat with people. They're no longer strangers then. Especially if you exchange names. You're not a stranger if you've exchanged names. And, I hope in the future we'll keep seeing the same people and we can actually develop better acquaintances. And who knows, maybe some people will become friends. But it's definitely a low stakes way to kind of get out there and socialize a bit. It's definitely a challenge for us with ADHD to play bingo. Stay focused. So it's kind of fun in that way. And there's
dyslexia.
Huh? Oh, and
dyslexia.
Oh God, yes, I've caught myself several times. But again, like, you're not the only person who is interested in, essentially maybe at the very least cultivating more acquaintances. My mother used to remark on this when I was a child and a teenager, that I couldn't go anywhere without being hailed. People were like, hello, Glory, hello, Glory. Everybody remembered me. And I would just, hey. She's like, it's like you're at a parade all the time and you're the float. Tom was there too. He's seen it. This hasn't really ended. I like knowing people. I like people knowing my name and I know their name. I'm not great with names, but I try my best. And it's nice. I like it because it means I feel welcome wherever I go. And while that's not exactly friendship, it's a great beginning to potential friendship. I've actually become pretty good friends with some people. So even at some fast food places, which I hardly ever go to, people remember me there and are friends with me, and they'll like check the labels for me and not act like it's like a big deal. They understand I have health issues and I have to be careful about, the ingredients, and they will happily, Glory, we have a new product and I checked it as soon as it came in and you can have it. And I'm like, well, set me up, put it on my order, please. it feels nice to feel cared for. But honestly, I never see these people except at fast food places or like literally around town when they'll honk as they're driving by and I'll honk or wave. It's nice though to feel like you are welcome in your own town versus the alternative where you feel ostracized in the town you live in. So, as I said, though, it is a good beginning to developing friendships because, again, if you keep running into people, well, it means you more likely have shared interest or shared schedules or similar schedules, and there's potential for friendship to develop. And again, you don't have to be best friends. Everybody doesn't have to turn out to be a best friend. As I said, that the man who was like such a raving bigot, you know what? Over a 2-year period, I got to know him better, partly because, you know, we did keep running into each other. So he was trying to, in his own way, you know, smooth that bridge over. And in the end, because like I wasn't trying to get anything out of that relationship. Like I just assumed that there was no benefit, but I wasn't going to be rude. I was going to be social. You know me. I'm an extrovert. I try to be nice to people. And in the end, one time, it turned out to be very advantageous for me. I never expected it to be. I was literally on the side of the road with a busted radiator in my old car, my 1985 Crown Vic. And he drove by and saw me there on the side of the road with the smoke and everything. And when he drove back by, he was going to the store to get a few things, you know, like milk and stuff. And when he drove back by, I was still there, so he pulled over. And he offered me a ride. And I was like, okay, thank you, because nobody's coming. And he dropped me off at the house. And then the next day, he called me up. He got my number from someone else he knew. And he called me up and he said, what are you going to do about that car? And I was like, I don't know. I can't afford to have it towed. And I can't afford to have it fixed. And right now I'm just scrambling, trying to find rides to and from my job. I really don't know. Why did the police already mark it or something? And he's like, no, but they're about to. And he said, well, let me see what I can do. I'm like, you don't have to do anything. Like, he's like, yeah. And that was the last I heard. And the man then that day, because he knew I was going to work, so he just went ahead and called up someone he knew and had the car towed first to my house. And then he went ahead and had it towed the same day to a shade tree mechanic who loved Fords and particularly loved former cop cars, because this was a former cop car. And the man gave me, because he loved working on former cop cars, I don't know why, everybody's got their thing, I guess. He essentially was just going to charge me for parts, not labor, because as long as I didn't mind him doing it in his spare time, you know. And so literally they hauled it to his house. So he could work on it that weekend. He was all excited and everything. And this man, since he loved working on Fords, particular former cop cars, he knew a guy in another part of the state who would make custom tubes and things for Fords, because Ford had discontinued several of the parts, which that is some BS. But anyway, I did not know that about Fords, and I'm still salty about this, like 20 years later. Anyway. And so like, cause like there were problems with the car that I thought I was going to have to junk the car since I couldn't get certain tubes, replacement parts. And this guy actually knew somebody who would handcraft blacksmith these parts for him because they both had a shared love of Fords. And, so I got the thing fixed for the cost of parts. So, and that guy drove down because he too loved working on Fords. I don't know. And I mean, like, this was this thing these two friends did, and they got to bond over it over my car. And I got my car for just fixed for parts. And it was just because of this bigot knew these people. And he was, because like I had given him a ride before, and we had kept running into each other, so we had sort of, I guess, an acquaintanceship. So again, I want to point out, just stay open to meeting new people, even if on paper they check 0 boxes for you, because you never know when it's just going to sort of work out and human kindness will come in handy. But being friendly like and knowing people and being kind and compassionate with people and not trying to change people, but just accept people for who they are, it can come in handy. I'm not saying that's the only reason to be kind and compassionate, but I'm just saying being yourself in a kind and compassionate manner can pay off in ways you can't foresee with people you would never expect to be friendly to you. So I just think it is always useful to keep being open to establishing friendships. In fact, it's one of the things that Tom and I think like happened to our mother was she stopped making new friends. It's something that happened several years before she died, but it was like she was kind of just done. She was just done with people. And but all people need more people. We have family, and family's nice. But family is not the same as friends. I mean, I know I'm saying that. I'm literally talking like Tom is here, and Tom and I are actual full genetic family. So I realize it's not a little hypocritical, and I'm aware. But I just mean like most family are not friends. You also need friends, not just family. And when I would say to Mom, but you need friends, she's like, I have friends. They just live in other states, which that was true. But she also just needed to hang out with friendly people more often. And she just started kind of cutting herself off. And she wasn't making new friends or investing in new friendships. And we were worried. And, it kind of seemed like we were well-founded in that to be worried. Like she had kind of given up on living and she was just waiting to die. It doesn't matter your age, you can feel that way. And I felt that way. In my early 20s, I felt that way. In my early 30s, I felt that way. I felt that way plenty of times. But it is a temporary feeling. It will pass, especially if you try to just go through the motions of getting out there and you chat with people, even though you're just trying to, spend time. You're not really, your heart's not in it. It doesn't matter. Eventually, you will, if you keep doing that, you will meet people you connect with on a deeper level. People who just like you, warts and all. And so again, I just want to point out, especially if you are neurodivergent, we need friends. We need to see friendly faces often. And when we don't, we feel like, oh, the world's just madness and it's just not worth it to invest in people because it never works out. So what? So what if it doesn't work out? It's nice to be surrounded by friendly faces. The alternative is so much worse.
It was a fun adventure.
I will say, though, that if you feel like there's no point in the world and the world is just terrible, probably what you really need are younger friends. because to see life through younger people's eyes is really heartening. You know, you've heard the word disheartening. It's heartening. It replenishes your own heart to see the world through their fresh eyes, and how the world is still full of so much potential and opportunity to them. And it kind of rubs off on you if you are an older person and you're a little bit jaded or a lot of bit jaded. It helps to be around younger people and to see it through their eyes, where they still think the world has so much potentiality and opportunity and sweetness. They just have to find it. You know, they're that story, the kid who gets he's gifted a whole room of horse manure, and he yells woohoo and dives in, and you know, it's like, why are you so happy? And he's like, with this much horse manure, there's got to be a horse in here somewhere. It's like that. But you know, that kind of enthusiasm and joy, it rubs off on us. So I would honestly recommend that if you're feeling overly jaded, and I remember I was a jaded, y'all, you have no idea. I was a very jaded 18-year-old once. To hang around people who are not so jaded, it will hearten you. It will grow your heart. It will refresh your heart. I highly recommend it. You just have to keep looking and just make sure that your heart is open to meeting new people who can share some of their joy and love with you of the world. I used to have a friend, he's passed away. The thing he wanted most in life out of friendship with me was to sit and drink a beer and watch the sunset with me. If he had his choice, I would do it every single day with him. I did not like beer back then. I don't really love beer now, but at the time I didn't know any beers I like. So frankly, I usually just sat with a soda or a juice and sometimes a water. And this is all he wanted to do, was just sit quietly watching the sunset. For my ADHD, it was so freaking boring. But this is what made him so happy. We both had ADHD. He had ADHD too. He was actually the person that encouraged me to get diagnosed, truthfully. And this was the thing he wanted the most in the world. And it was such a simple thing. I would literally set an alarm on my phone when he and I were in the same town together. And it would go off to remind me that I have 10 minutes to stop everything I'm doing and go find wherever he is in town and sit and watch the sunset with him. And so as soon as that alarm would go off, I would call him up while I started putting everything away in my office. Be like, what are you doing? And he would be like, oh, I'm this. I'm like, well, I'm going to be over at our sunset chairs. Are you going to get there in time? And almost all the time he would just stop what he's doing. He literally, I'm heading to the cashiers right now. If he was in the middle of grocery shopping, I'm going. Because this is all he wanted to do in life. And his wife never made time to do this with him. And he just wanted to sit and watch the sunset with people, with his friends, with his loved ones. So this is what we did. This is what we did. Now, what I like to do was actually drive while the sun was setting. So sometimes he would come up with like an adventure, an errand for us to do out of town, so that we would be driving either into the sunset or we'd be driving by the sunset, so we could both enjoy the sunset while driving, because that's how I really like. I like to watch the sunset while I drive or while I'm in the car. And so we do that sometimes. And again, finding out what people really want out of life or out of your friendship with them, it can be enlightening. I still to this day don't look at sunsets the same way. He totally changed the way I look at sunsets. Because we would sit there and we'd be quiet most of the time, but you know me, I have ADHD. I have the hyperactive type. He used to talk about that I reminded him so much of the squirrel from Over the Hedge, which, yeah, that's fair. Because I never stopped moving. He had the inattentive type. So, like, I try to be quiet. Finally, I was like, okay, so what is it about the sunset that's so wonderful? Like, explain, help me see it. And over many months and years, he did school me. He taught me how to view the sunset and what it is about the sunset that makes him so happy, and what is bringing him joy here, and what can I gain a better appreciation for about the sun setting. And I really appreciate that he also took that time to talk about. And he said he loved teaching me about watching the sunset because none of his grown children wanted to sit and watch the sunset with him anymore. And he really missed that. And he said, it's nice that I can teach you, and I can imagine that at least this knowledge won't die with me. This meant a lot to him. So I share it with you. Give it a try. You never know. Get out there, say hi to people, be nice to people, chit chat, make small talk. We have talked about the importance of small talk. See if you hit it off. See if you keep running into the same people. And even if on the surface they seem all prickly and difficult to like or get along with, you might be able to find that thing of like, they're prickly as hell, but if you're sitting there watching the sunset with them, suddenly they're docile, sweet people. Making that connection, that's the real magic humans bring. That connection with others. Give it a try. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I really appreciate it if you stayed here the whole time. Yeah. I like a little bit of prickles. I don't like too much, because then it's like, I just can't, how do I connect if it's all prickles? But if it's like 3/4 prickles and there's like a soft underbelly, it's like, ooh. I have to weigh it. But yes, thank you. Thank you for listening. I will stop talking. Tom, your turn.
And also, when you later on, it's like, but what do we do together? How do, the other part I think of so much is the play. Everything is play. Like what Glory and a bunch of AuthorTube are doing on Substack, of doing a shared story. It's play. It's, seeing what happens next. It's same with playing games. We forget to value that there doesn't have to be a end product to our activities together. It can just be for the experience together and to enjoy it. Hence, you playing board games, go to maker spaces. The compassion of, it doesn't matter what happens. I got to go on the adventure and do this and find out.
Mm-hmm.
That's the fun of shared activities. Especially helps if like you're not worried about what the outcome is. It's just learning.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken cooking classes that were public, like open to the public, and I took cooking class, and like I did not realize it, but I was the only person with anything about my kind of background other than being a woman. That was the only thing that wasn't unique about all the other people. Like, I was definitely not in the same income level, the same background, anything. I mean, these people were way different. Very wealthy professionals. Everybody was like a doctorate level doctor of something except me. I was literally the only person without, even at the time, I don't think I even had a bachelor's degree. I was working on it, but I didn't have it yet. Or maybe I had just gotten it. Anyway, yeah, I was like, I got nothing. Y'all are like all this. But we all learned to caramelize mushrooms together. And the person running that cooking class got me all liquored on Pinot Grigio. He was very impressed with my alcohol tolerance. He thought he was going to get me smashed. It wasn't. But like, yeah. They weirdly enough, people don't forget me, and so I still run into some of these people from cooking class once in a while at stores and whatever, and they still remember my name, which is wild because I've forgotten all of theirs. You make connections with people, and you never know what is going to come in handy.
And you never know when, like as Spence earlier pointed out, of sometimes you can grow into friendships just as you grow out of them. Sometimes you'll age into a friendship.
Yeah.
Maybe now is not a good time. I've definitely have several friends that there are years and years we don't really talk much because our schedules and our lives just do not line up.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll reconnect years later when it does work again. And it's, we don't hold that against each other. It's just, welcome to life. But yeah, you never know the people you meet that you may have just, you pass up a striking, you strike up a passing acquaintance. Later on in years down the line, you may develop friendships with because more things align now.
Yeah.
Sometimes it may actually be right person, right place, wrong time, and the time might be later.
Yeah.
But you won't know if you don't get out there.
There's no reason to throw away an acquaintanceship. Like, I really had to take the, like, whatever the approach of storing wine, I had to take that approach to friendships. Of, like, I know all these people, and I'm just, like, collecting them all in my wine room of people till, like, they fruit. Till something, yeah. Yeah, even says, my closest friend and I weren't close at all for the first 3 years we knew one another. Yeah. You just never know. You have no idea. So you kind of go with friendship as sort of a scatter plot thing where you just sort of get to know people a little bit. They get to know you, a little bit about their background. You run into each other once in a while. You say hi when you run in. And then one day your schedules align or your interests align. Something.
Or someone a little bit that you in passing may get to know you a little bit and go and realize they have another friend who probably would like to know you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with Unity and you in Glory.
Yeah.
Yep. Just always be open and conversational.
Yeah. Pleasant.
Yeah. And be yourself. Don't worry. If they don't want to be friends with you, it's good to know now versus way
if
down
they
the
are
road.
Prejudice against people who wear adult fairy wings, good to know now. Better to know now.
But you I have one acquaintance with a 1-year-old preggo with another younger than my daughter, but we hit on the big things, so we have a pending water park play date. I doubt we're ever close, but some friends stay in budding friendships until the age gap is obsolete.
True. Very true.
Sometimes if you really can age into a friendship, just as sometimes you age out of them.
Yes.
It's okay if they just sort of you stay acquaintances for years and decades.
Mm-hmm.
Because what kind of matters really, as Gloria said at the beginning of the show, of like, it's who sticks around.
Yeah.
Who wants to be around you? That should be the ones you invest the energy in.
Who keeps showing back up?
Because who brings a smile to your face?
Yeah, getting people to show up, that's the hard part.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was hard as a kid. Turns out that's actually easier.
Yeah.
It's hard to get adults to show up.
Yes. But yeah, give it a try. Be open and find out what open times your schedule has, like that you can open up and go, to various events, chat with strangers a little bit, small talk, not like deep chat, but a little bit of, so what do you think of the play so far? You can just go up to people at intermission and do that, by the way. So what do you think of the play so far? If they don't seem like they're just standing around, maybe waiting to finish their drink before they go back in, you can like sidle up and be like, so what do you think of the play so far? Is it worth going back in? What do you think? You want to place a non-financial bet? Just words.
Who's going to make it through to the end of the play?
Something. I don't know. Who do you think is the murderer? Could they possibly do the butler did it? Or do you think it's someone else? You don't have to exchange names for this conversation. You know, it's the same with the like fiber art groups, crafting groups of like, oh, what a lovely quilt you have made, or what a lovely crochet that you have made. What inspired this? You can ask these general questions. I will absolutely go to art gallery showings. You know, where if they say they're gonna, if they say they're gonna have refreshments, usually that means the artist will be there. Sometimes they'll just say the artist will be there, and if you go there, or they say what kind, maybe it's some type of art that you enjoy, like impressionism or sculptures, whatever. And you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like I think I might like to go to that. You know, try your best to go to the showing where they've got the refreshments and the artist will be there, because you can always strike a conversation with the artist and say, what inspired this piece? Or could you tell me a little about it? You know, just to start the conversation. And then you could say, oh, thank you very much. By the way, my name is such and such. And they're like, hi. And like, thank you so much. This is a lovely gallery showing. I'm really glad you had it. Or, you know, the so-and-so hosted it. It's lovely. You give them a compliment, you go on. Then you might see them a couple weeks or months later, like at the grocery store or whatever. You could say, hi, how are you? Again, like, you never know when something more will happen friendship-wise. But this is how you kind of seed friendship out in the wild.
Yes.
Because that is my approach. I'm not saying it's everyone's approach, but I feel like even introverts can do this a little bit. Because it's not intense. You're not spending an intense amount of time with strangers. You know, one-on-one. You just seed it. You can just wave at people when you see them. You don't have to go up to them at the grocery store. You can just wave and keep walking. You know, if you just don't have the peopling that day, you've all peopled out, or you don't have the dopamine or whatever, you can just wave. And if you need to, say, just, I'm so sorry I can't chat with you. I'm super busy today, but it's so good to see you. And just walk on. And you never know, like, it, but you've seeded it. So they're never going to be a stranger to you again. And that means that there's a possibility for something later. So you just never know. Can you hold this for a moment? Digs through first. Sorry. Do I know if we're allowed to take the drink back into the play? Exactly. Asking a favor. That's a Ben Franklin trick.
Mm-hmm. And it works.
It does work.
People love giving their opinions on things.
Yes.
People love sharing their knowledge.
Mm-hmm. I've literally gotten job interviews from hitting up people at the intermission of what do you think's going to happen by the end of the play. And then they're chatting with me, and then afterwards they're like, so they, you know, talking about it for a minute, and they're like, hey, you know, they'll introduce themselves, and I'll remember, oh shoot, I never introduced myself. And they're like, so what do you do? And I'm like, well, I'm between jobs, or I'm looking for a job, and they're like, oh, I know somebody. And then literally there's a card, come out, here you go, call them up. They're right now they're hiring. Tell them Frank sent you. I'm like, oh, well, thank you so much. I absolutely will. And I've gotten job interviews that way. Just from literally being bored at intermission and going up to a strange man who was just standing there drinking his brandy and going, do you think it is entirely possible the butler, in fact, actually did it? And he's like, well, okay. You know? Like, I have done that. And then, you know, surprise, got like a job interview out of it. Like, I wasn't trying for that, but I don't know. Like, I was just in a kind of a froggy mood. Eva says, comic books with game nights are a great place for idle conversation chats. Don't know the game? Perfect. Yeah, exactly. Like, just, I think of it as seeding the town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the opposite of for teenagers use. If teenagers don't want to do anything that they're not already really good at, versus adults. No, adults love people who have no knowledge of something that they can, you know, teach, that they can feel useful to, or just feel like, you know, they have, you know, some knowledge to share. It's a great way to validate others. But yeah, the more people know you around town, the more they will also know anyone else they know who may be looking for a similar type of friendship, who has similar interests.
I have literally been introduced to people by cashiers at gas stations because the cashier knew that I liked reading sci-fi novels. And one of the jobbers, the guys who come in to stock chips, was asking if anybody read sci-fi and had any book recommendations because he'd run out of things to read. He was kind of desperate. And the cashier said, I know somebody who comes in often here and she reads sci-fi. I'll ask her. And literally it just worked out that I happened to be there the next time when he was jobbing. And she said, hey, I got somebody who's asking for sci-fi book recommendations. And he's right over there. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, no, go. I will not cash you out. So I'm like, okay. And I just had to walk up to the stranger who's jobbing. Just like, hi, I hear you're looking for sci-fi book recommendations. And there's the cashier. And we actually ended up becoming acquaintances. This was back when I had the video store. So what I actually told him was, the usual questions about what do you like? Do you like any of the big Silver Age ones? And then I just told him you should just come to the video store. We stock a ton of used sci-fi novels because it's all the ones we've read. And we buy any we find at garage sales. So you should honestly just come there for books. But also if you're just looking like to go to a bookstore, I'd be happy to also give you recommendations, but it just sort of depends on what you like. So we also became a customer at the video store, which that was pretty cool. So it's just one of those things of the more people who know you around your town and who know a few things about your interests, they can help connect you with people. You just never know till you say hi and smile. But yes, please, I feel like the thing that worries me the most about neurodivergent people is when you stop trying to make new friends. It's all downhill from there. And I say that as somebody who's gone through periods where I stopped trying to make new friends. I was, in mentally a bit of a dark place. And, and Tom's been there too. And it's not a great place to be. And we get bolstered through those dark periods by our friends. During those dark periods, the friends I already had knew I wasn't doing well, and they tried even harder to keep in touch and to just check on me weekly. And it did help gap me through. But these were not a few weeks of dark. These were literal years of darkness. So yeah, our friends get us through. We get by with a little help from our friends. I mean, that's kind of true. So I think that's kind of what Tom wanted to talk to his younger self about. Yeah. Or have we covered all of the big?
I think so. Yeah, I think we covered about everything.
Just because you've been batting a 0 or low batting average in friends for the last 5 or 10 years, it doesn't mean it will always be this way. I promise you that. It may not be you at all. It may be just a weird time in the world or a weird age to be in the world right now. It's not necessarily that you're doing bad things or you're not being a good friend, especially if you're trying to be kind and compassionate to people. It may not be you at all. Don't worry. But you just kind of need to, keep seeding the environment. Keep smiling and saying hi, and not the scary smile. I'm going to bring it up again. Check your smile in the mirror. Make sure it's a good smile and not the creepy Stephen King monsters from your nightmares smile. Because when you're in a mentally dark place, the smile gets odd. I'm talking about myself right now, okay? The smile gets a little, ooh, what is that? But yeah, just say hi and smile to people. chit chat. Ask the cashier how she's doing today. Is she handling the heat okay? If she says no, she's been suffering, offer to buy her a soda or a juice. I mean, we're literally talking less than $1. Just, a little bit of kindness goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
You just never know. And nothing may ever happen of it. You just spent a whole $1 for nothing. Don't worry about it. There's no wasting kindness. People pass it forward.
So, what are we talking about for next week?
Oh, let's see. Sex.
Speaking of compassion.
I believe it's Tom's theory that this will be the next Monday's episode will be the one most likely to whatever get a restriction rating from YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
Let's find out together. What's your pitch, Tom?
Almost everything you learned in high school and college is wrong.
Okay. Then what's right?
To use a bad quote, what really matters is everyone gets a cookie. And that everyone has fun. Whenever I hear bad at sex, what I really hear is does not know how to have fun with others.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things everyone judges each other on does not matter that much when it comes to bedroom Olympics with each other. What matters is you're having fun, you're playing, you're paying attention to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, you know what? It's something that I know every teenager worries about as, the hormones kick in.
Mm.
And it's like, here, let's tell them the parts that no one really brings up. The birds and the bees talk that tends to be forgotten about. Of the mechanics don't matter as much as the emotions and the consideration and the psychology. Although there are a bunch of little physical tricks you can do that do help a lot of things that also we've learned that we can also bring up. I mean, we did run, we have sold adult novelties and marital aids for, I think actively about a decade.
Yeah, we're right. We did that for combined between the video store and the home party business. It was a total of about a decade. And then if you count your experience and my experience separately, that's more than 20 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
Just between the two of us.
Of
novelties and things.
Yeah, like how do you have fun with other people and yourself?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff that simply because we live in a very conservative culture is never discussed that we know to be the truth, like, demonstrably proven by science, that is not talked about. And so instead people feel very ashamed and unsure and just all these problems that don't need to be there. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, here's something I know my teenage self wanted to hear a bit more comforting knowledge about that, we can pass on.
I mean, you do understand that in our family, we tend to be instinctively pretty good in bed.
Yes. But we've also had more than enough friends, let alone through those decades we have talked with so many people. A lot of people have bad instincts. And they also just don't have as much, I don't know how to put it, than biological and medical knowledge like we do. Like, we are very curious about that, so we know better how it functions and works, which, yeah, it means we have better instincts for how to have fun with it, how to play.
Yes. But yeah, it is just another form of play, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will see what happens. We will see how YouTube takes it and how others take it. I'm sure we will disappoint many people.
Why?
Because it's not as sexy as, they were hoping it would be.
I mean, you're inspiring me to actually put on my Substack the Good Times Redeemer
Yes.
stories that I wrote and I've never published, and also to republish my old newspaper column.
Oh yeah,
Talk,
Mm-hmm.
which I have been thinking about, but just do for paid subscribers, because then
yeah. But of the it's something that should be fun, and it so rarely is discussed as something that's just fun.
Yeah.
And it's not that difficult to be good at it.
It really isn't.
Cooking is much more difficult.
Oh, yes. I agree. Cooking is harder than being good in bed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we hope you'll come and join us next week. If nothing, out of curiosity to see what we're going to talk about in our combined 20 plus years of experience of sex education and talking about relationships in a sexual manner and how neurodivergent people can do it great. Everyone can frankly do it great. It's super fun, and you're doing it right if you're having a good time and it feels good. It's literally like there's great markers, flags of like, keep going, you're doing great, It's really easy to succeed at this one area of life, and yet so many people feel worried or anxious or afraid they're terrible at it. So then, what happens is, if you're afraid of this boogie thing, then you become that. So if you're afraid of being terrible at it, you're then going to become terrible at it. Versus understanding of it's just a fun little playtime that you do privately. So yeah, nothing to it but to do it. So anyhow, we will see you next week. We hope you come by. And good night, everybody. And thank you so much for being here. And if you enjoyed it, please be sure to click the like button. It helps us with the algorithm. And if you're not already subscribed, maybe consider subscribing and ringing that little notification bell. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on any and all the subjects we covered. Good night, everybody. Mwah, mwah.
Good night.
I will find the buttons.